Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of The Duchess of Malfi by John Webster. The play takes place in Roman Catholic Italy and it begins in the palace of the Duchess, who is a young widow and the ruler of the Italian town of Amalfi. Her steward Antonio has just returned from a visit to the French court, and Bozzalo, a murderer and former employee of her brother the cardinal, has just returned from his punishment. Soon, Duke Ferdinand, the Duchess' other brother, enters with his whole retinue. In a private conversation with his friend Delio, Antonio reveals that though the cardinal and duke appear good, they are in fact jealous, cunning, and despicable. He adds that though her brothers are horrible, the duchess is noble, temperate, beautiful, and intelligent. Even though the duchess is still young and beautiful, her brothers do not want her to remarry. They hope to preserve their honor by ensuring for ongoing sexual purity and to eventually inherit her fortune by forcing her to remain a widow. In order to make sure they have their way, Ferdinand gets Basolo a position on the Duchess' estate and hires him to be his spy. Bozzalo doesn't want to be a spy, but he feels that it is a duty to obey the Duke, even if doing so makes him corrupt. Ferdinand and the Cardinal then confront the Duchess, instructing her not to remarry. She agrees not to, but as soon as her brothers leave, she tells her maid Cariola that she will marry in secret. The Duchess then woos Antonio, inverting the traditional male and female roles in courtship. They too marry in secret. 9 months later, the Duchess is pregnant with Antonio's child. Bozzolo, still spying for Ferdinand, notes the signs of her pregnancy and plans to give her apricots as a test because they are known to induce labor. The Duchess eats the apricots and goes into labor and delivers the baby, creating chaos in a palace, but the delivery of the baby is a secret. And to maintain the secret, Antonio and Duchess give out a story that the Duchess has fallen ill with some disease. Antonio confronts Basolo to ask if the apricots were poisoned. Basolo denies accusation, but after the confrontation, he notices that Antonio has accidentally dropped a piece of paper, and in that paper, he finds a horoscope for a baby, which provides Basolo with concrete evidence that the Duchess has delivered a child. He decides to send the paper in a letter to the Duchess's brothers in Rome. When Ferdinand and the Cardinal learn that the Duchess has disobeyed them, they are infuriated, thinking their noble blood has been tainted, and Ferdinand seems also to be overwhelmed with the anger by the idea that the Duchess has been having sex at all, but they decide to wait to find out who the father is before taking action. A few years later, the Duchess has had two more of Antonio's child. Ferdinand, who learnt of the children from Bozzolo, decides to confront the Duchess in a bedchamber. Ferdinand sneaks in, frightens the Duchess, giving her a knife and suggesting that she kill herself. She admits that she is married and he becomes enraged. He says that she has lost her reputation and he swears that he will never see her again in his life. Antonio and the Duchess make a plan to flee. So the Duchess announces that Antonio has been using his position to steal from her and fires Antonio, and this is actually an excuse to get him out of Amalfi. After Basilio privately defends Antonio to the Duchess as being honorable and worthy, the Duchess, thinking that he is very affectionate towards Antonio, confides in him that Antonio is innocent and is in fact her husband. And she also says that she plans to flee to join him. Back in Rome, the Cardinal and Ferdinand find out from Basilio about the Duchess's plan. The Cardinal then formally banishes the Duchess, Antonio, and their children. Ferdinand invites Antonio to reconcile, but Antonio believes this is a trap, so instead of accepting the invitation, he flees with his eldest son to Milan. After he leaves, Basilio re enters in disguise and takes the Duchess and her two children captive under orders from the brothers. The brothers imprison the Duchess in her Amalfi palace. They, because Ferdinand has sworn never to see the Duchess, confronts her in the dark. He gives her his hand to hold, but then reveals that it is the hand of a dead man, and in order to convince her that Antonio is dead. He then plays a trick with Silitos to convince the Duchess that her children are also dead, at which point the Duchess wants to die. Ferdinand reveals to Basilio that he plans to torture her by exposing her to madmen from the local insane asylum. While Basilio feels bad for the Duchess and dislikes that he is participating in a torture, he continues to obey the Duke. In her prison, the madmen confront the Duchess and Cariola. Basilio then enters, disguised as an old man, and he tells the Duchess that he is going to kill her. The Duchess maintains her composure and is unafraid, but executioners enter and strangle her and her two children and Cariola. Though Ferdinand has no pity for the children, he immediately begins to feel remorse when he sees the Duchess's dead body. Ferdinand becomes maddened by guilt, and Basilio also acknowledges feeling a guilty consciousness. Ferdinand then condemns Basilio for following his orders and refuses to pay him for his work. After Ferdinand has departed, the Duchess wakes up, but only for some time, long enough for Basilio to tell her that her husband is still alive. Hearing this, she dies for real almost after waking up. Now in Milan, Antonio doesn't yet know his wife's fate. He decides to wake her enough and confront the cardinal in person in an attempt to defuse the situation. Ferdinand, meanwhile, has been diagnosed with lycanthropia, which is a werewolf disease, and he begins acting like a madman, even attacking his shadow, clearly plagued by guilt. The cardinal wants his involvement in the murder to remain secret, and he instructs Basilio to murder Antonio. A woman named Julia, with whom the cardinal has been having an affair, becomes smitten with Basilio, and he convinces Julia to try and get a confession out of the cardinal. Julia confronts the cardinal and finds her secret. So, the cardinal forces her to kiss a poison book, thereby killing her. Basilio reveals to the cardinal that he has overseen his murder and the cardinal's confession. He agrees to help the cardinal in return for payment, but in fact, this is a trick. He decides that he will do everything in his power to save Antonio and to get revenge on the brothers. In the cardinal's palace, the cardinal tells all of his courtiers to stay away from his room, and he says, no matter what they hear, even if he tests them with screams and shouts, they should not come there. Basilio sneaks into the palace and overhears that the cardinal plans to kill him after he helps the cardinal. Soon after, Antonio sneaks into the palace in his effort to find the cardinal and end the quarrel. However, in the darkness, Basilio accidentally stabs Antonio, mistaking him for one of the brothers. Antonio lives just long enough for Basilio to inform him that the Duchess and the two of the children have been murdered, at which point Antonio no longer wants to live. Basilio goes to find and kill the cardinal, but when the cardinal starts screaming for help, no one comes because of his instructions that they should stay away. And in the chaos, Basilio stabs the cardinal twice. Ferdinand then enters and, mistaking his brother for the devil, stabs both the cardinal and Basilio. Basilio then stabs Ferdinand, who uses his dying words to say that our deaths are caused by our own actions. While Basilio explains what happened, the cardinal dies, and after Basilio makes a final speech, he dies as well. After all the deaths, Delio enters with Antonio's son, announces his intention to help the son to receive his proper inheritance, and here ends the play. This is the short summary of the play. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.